Well, good morning, and today we are in a very sunny Shepshed, and we're going to be walking north towards Donington Park, and hopefully the airport, where we will get to see a few planes. So come on, walking with Llama Paws with me right now. I start off in the car park alongside Glenmore Park in Shepshed, and firstly head up Britannia and then Belton Street. And then it's a case of taking up the road north away from the town itself. Continuing north through the fields, after a while the route jinks west alongside a river and then brings me across the A42 road, where I'm able to take the Longmoor lane into Diseworth. After a brief shortcut over some fields, I take a minor road northwards which brings me out alongside the airport itself, and then I head west alongside the A453, before curving north around the runway, taking in a little bit of the airport trail. There's a diversion that follows through Castle Donnington before I head eastwards through the East Midlands Gateway Industrial Zone and then across the M1 towards Kegworth itself. After a short road walk, I take Whatton Road south, which brings me to the long Whatton village itself, before I manage to find a rather tricky field route south past Oakley and Piper Woods, which brings me out on Shepshed's outskirts. After this, it's just a short walk for me through the town and back to the car park. Starting out from the Britannia car park, which is rather conveniently free. So I can see I might be coming back here to do some more walks. It's Sunday morning, it's surprisingly quiet. I mean, not surprisingly quiet because it's Sunday morning. And yeah, streets are relatively empty. I have, this time, remembered to bring my walking stick. Like last time where I totally and utterly forgot it. So now on the road out of Shepshed. It's reasonably peaceful. I mean, it is Sunday morning, obviously, there's still a few cars. Here's some motorbikes in the distance, so hopefully we won't get interrupted by them. There is, it's fair to say, on this route, a fair bit of road walking. Because in order to get to East Midlands Airport, obviously we've got to get close to it, and there's a lot of roads and access roads and the like around it. There is, however, going to be some field walking on this route today, but that'll be more in the latter half once we're heading away from the airport itself. Fun fact, I am today breaking in my new pair of boots. Finally got them. So, doing a longish walk to break them in should do the job, I'm hoping. And I might have a few extra calluses by the end of today's walk. We'll see. So as I came up here to Highfield's house, just crossing the road there, I've rather discovered that my video camera had decided to mute me for most of the rest of today's walk, so I'm afraid you're going to get my after-action commentary. You can see the path here is, well, it's not exactly that well marked. According to the map, it runs on this side of the tree line, next to this electric fence. But I suppose I could have walked on that driveway over there to the left. But I thought, best to be careful, best not to walk on someone's property when, it's on this side of the tree line where the footpath appears to be marked. Anyway, I do remember that I was very pleased at this point to be off the road and onto a little bit of field walking. It's surprising watching this footage back, because I don't appear to be moving that fast for me, and it's only a very slight hill. Anyway, nice bit of field walking to go from this point, and hopefully very soon we will begin to see the outline of the airfield itself. Just beyond where I was walking previously, I came to the top of this hill alongside little woods, and I could actually see in the distance East Midlands Airport at last, although a bit of a walk still to go before I get to it. Here I am crossing over the A42 road, one of a number of busy dual carriageways and motorways I got to cross on this walk. Now, I was actually quite glad to be back on some tarmac surface because the fields behind me, well, they'd been extremely boggy, very claggy underfoot, very soft mud actually. I mean, they were running alongside a small river, which wouldn't have helped matters, but had been quite difficult to cross. The route had also not been that clearly marked. You can just see me going past a better marked path there. Would it have been like that on the other side of the A42? Now ahead, you can just see coming up, there is another path marker, and this indicated a route that goes up to Diseworth village itself. Well, this is Diseworth village road as well, so either of these two paths, the one through the fields or on this road, would get me to the end. And I concluded that actually, after the mud of the previous field, I was going to walk along this road for a while instead. Had I known now quite how much road walking was ahead of me, I probably would have opted instead though to go across the field path because it's a much nicer route. I mean, this is not a bad road to walk on. It's a little steep to start with, but it's clear, it's got a lot of greenery around it and relatively empty being a Sunday morning, so I was able to still enjoy it. But I would have probably enjoyed walking across the fields that little bit more, I suspect. Nice to see my camera struggling there to cope with the blue skies and the lovely sunshine we were having this day. Well, here I am actually going through Diseworth village itself. Despite the proximity of Diseworth to East Midlands Airport, this is a surprisingly charming and rather peaceful village. I've rather liked it actually. Quite friendly locals as well said hello to me. There are two notable features though about this village. One is a prevalence of signs asking you kindly not to park here if you are visiting the airport in any way and saying where the nearest car parks actually are, and a lot of security cameras on the houses. Don't know if it's a particularly high crime area or if the locality, being so close to the airport makes a difference, but anyway, a lot of cameras. Up here on the left is the first of two pathways, and I made the error here thinking, oh, this is the route ahead. This is the one I want to go that goes north towards the A453. But turns out it was only a shortcut across the field to a back road. Still, very nice field. Bit of a challenging style though, which as you can see in a moment, I decided to stop filming and just actually concentrate on walking. So yes, I found myself, after about another mile, walking directly alongside the A453, quite the busy road that runs directly south of East Midlands Airport itself. I'd actually heard my first plane take off at this point, but hadn't really seen it, or certainly not got any shots. What I had, though, discovered was when I was walking along here, I looked at my map and realised just to the south of here, again, a couple of fields over on the left, there's actually a field route that runs parallel to this and brings me out at the roundabout ahead that I'm heading for, which gives me access to the airport trail. Had I known that at the time, I wouldn't have gone out of Diseworth via that little field route. I would have stayed on the road straight directly through Diseworth, gone out to the west, picked up that nice path, and had a mile and a half of lovely walking through fields instead of walking along here as cars and vans hurtle past me. I mean, thankfully, this is a Sunday morning, so this is relatively quiet, and the verge is quite wide as well. But I am glad that I wasn't doing this on a weekday, because I can imagine this gets quite hectic. The fact you can see there's no stopping route as well with the red there, kind of indicates the level of traffic they get down here. But the verge, for the most part, was easy enough to walk on. I certainly wasn't going to walk on the road on this and risk myself. And anyway, ahead I was hoping to access that airport trail. Well, that's officially the first plane I've just spotted taking off. We're not going to get on film. Which is just as well, as here we are, about to set off on the airport trail, part of this route. I love that aeroplane. And here I am coming around the far west of the airport. This is actually called the airport trail, and it's what I'd hoped to take all the way round. Turned out it was actually harder to follow than I thought it was going to be today. Oh well. It was nice to walk on this for a little while, and certainly over to my west, I finally realised where all the motorbike noises were coming from the Speedway Park as well. So now I'm on the road that runs around the top edge of the airport, and the pathway you can see there is what I thought was going to be the airport trail, but obviously it's inside the security fencing, so very clearly isn't. So hence I continued alongside this road, which just runs around the top edge of the airport itself. You see the control tower there. That's the entrance to Castle Donnington, and that was my backup route if I couldn't access the airport trail. Now, reading my map, which I would later discover was actually quite out of date, even though it was only 2 or 3 years old, I thought the airport trail went through that car park over there. There is a museum in there with older planes and the like, and I think technically the pathway does go through there, but it didn't look like that accessible. Indeed, I saw someone unlocking a gate to access the car park, that car which went in there. So it didn't really say to me, yes, come this way, come and have a look around the airport. So I decided discretion was the better action here. And so rather than visiting these old planes, I decided to divert through Castle Donnington. So here I am going up the main road of Castle Donnington, a small town I've never actually visited before. I may have driven through it at least once. It was very sleepy this Sunday morning because the only people out on the street were me and joggers. And this is about 9:30 by this point, so it was a little later in the day. There you go, there's one of the joggers going past, you can just see over there. It was just really weird, joggers from everywhere. So anyway, I had decided at this point that I was going to take a diversion up through Castle Donnington and pick up the pathways running east out of the town. And that would then see me come back to the East Midlands Gateway roundabout, which would also then let me get on towards Kegworth and the pathways I thought I'd take south from there. Well, as you'll see in the near future, I had my hopes dashed again. And again, this was all down to the fact that my map was surprisingly out of date. There's been a lot of building work around the airport in recent years, something that my map had clearly failed to take into account when I bought it 4 years ago. So I can see that certainly this Explorer map is going to be one I need to update. It was fairly easy walking through here, even though at one point I did try to walk through an area that Google Maps said I could walk, and that actually turned out to be a locked area. Nice old house over there. Actually, there's a lot of really interesting houses in Castle Donnington. A lot of house porn if you're into that sort of thing. Heading eastward now out of Castle Donnington along this track. Now, as I looked ahead of me, I realised the route on my map and the route that I could actually see were two very different things. The fact there was all this new tree growth going on, clearly this had been planted, and I began to realise that ahead of me was the East Midlands Gateway, which meant my map really wasn't going to be much use at this point. Now the track is quite clear, as you can see, and there's ahead of us there's some really good signage. There's even some signage that suggested I could get back to the airport trail. The problem being, I wasn't sure if that was still telling the truth at this point. I'd started getting very suspicious of the signs. Certainly, earlier on the route, the airport trail elements and the signs directing me to it started going away. And that's when I ended up on that road, around the north edge of the airport. So I actually vacillated a little bit. I thought about going down the track towards the airport trail, maybe see if I could pick it up again. And then I thought, what if this takes me, half a mile out of my way, it's a dead end, and I have to turn around again? Oh, that's me there pointing with my stick at all the building work ahead of me. So yeah, I really did think to myself, it wasn't such a great idea to keep following the signs, and maybe just following the route as it was signposted ahead here towards Kegworth was probably the best idea, because once I could get towards Kegworth, there's a much better chance, I thought, that I could pick up some field paths or even some minor roads and head towards Long Whatton, which was really where I was aiming to go next. So yeah, East Midlands Airport, 4 miles from here. That's a long route to get to it. So yeah, this was the point at which I began to think, just keep it simple. And so a few moments later, I looked down at the East Midlands Gateway and realised, oh, this isn't on my map. And so down the hill I went into the East Midlands Gateway area. You'll see in a moment, this really is a vast complex of shipping, storage and delivery warehouses, and it has absolutely sprung up in the last few years. I've driven past it before, but I hadn't realised quite how large it had got. I suppose an advantage, it means, we're never that far from Amazon delivery here, or one of the many other companies, which includes Games Workshop, I noticed. But on the other hand, at the moment, it's not the most interesting area to walk through, and there's about a mile and a half ahead of me that's more or less walking through this that, well, I think walking past the airport might have been a little more interesting if I'd managed to find the airport trail after all. And so yeah, a mile or so later on, I was still walking out of this logistics park. I was grateful as well because there was quite a bit of sun up until this point, but then the clouds began to roll in a little bit and I was grateful for that. But as you can see, it isn't the most exciting place to walk through, and certainly on a Sunday it's pretty much dead. There wasn't even a little cafe by the side of the road, which I hope there might have been to grab a drink or something. But anyway, I thought carry on down this road and eventually we will meet the M1 and cross over that and head towards Kegworth. And finally, I was out of the logistics park and crossing over this very busy roundabout. It's actually part of the junction that takes you onto the M1. There was that power station. I walked from that last year. Just looking back there for a moment. But very, very grateful to be out of that area. I mean, this might have a lot of crossings and a lot of traffic, but all the same, it's a little more interesting, and it also finally does lead back to some fields. Some exciting footage here of me actually standing waiting for the crossing. I had pressed the button, it doesn't show up, but it was rather faint in the sun actually, whether you could get across here. I was also surprised that there are so many crossings here, but clearly people do walk around this area and maybe back to Kegworth. Okay, traffic was clear at this point, the green man had showed up. And I got across. Now, it's a bit weird here because you can see there's a path, there's a crossing, but you've got this piece of grass here that seems to say, don't walk this way. I was to discover that's because the main path is actually on the other side of the road, so I crossed over a minute or two after this. But there we have the M1, a little busier now. It's around about lunchtime on Sunday. Just looking back over the very urbanised landscape around here. I'm thinking how much happier I will be once I'm back into the countryside and away from the motorway. As I started down the road along Whatton, there was some excitement as finally a plane came into land and I got a sort of glorious view of the Ryanair jet flying over. So I was able to stop for a moment and just, admire it flying on in. Happy not to be on a Ryanair flight, I have to say. So here I am now on Whatton Road, just going past, as you can see, a solar farm on the left. Now, there is actually a field path that goes south to Long Whatton, which is the village ahead of us in the distance. It was a little further along the bypass, and I wasn't actually sure quite how far along it was because, again, the problems with the map. So as I said right at the start of this video, this route ended up being an awful lot more road walking than I planned on. It's quite nice looking over the fields as I sort of bobble along the road. You can just see a cyclist up ahead. He's going to come past in a few moments. This is a fairly straight road. There's a bit of a kink halfway down it. I look a few cars coming up at this point as well, but luckily I'm just going past this nice little gravelly bit where I can duck in and out of the way of the speeding traffic. To be honest, I think these were more or less the only cars I encountered down the mile or so of this road, so it wasn't so bad. It's not a cyclist after all, it's a jogger who impressed me by saying hello as he came up the hill. I'm always impressed when joggers say hello when they're coming up a hill, and they're going down the hill, far easier. Well, here we are coming into Long Whatton village. The road into it seemed a bit longer than I planned on, but here we are. Oh, a Skylink bus again. And the second blue one I've seen of those going past me. The other ones were yellow. Falcon in there looks quite nice. Now, I thought this was going to be fairly easy to find the route out of here. It's, supposedly just along this road here, and then you turn near the church. turned out to be a little bit more concealed. Indeed, the road sign, or the pathway sign for it, had disappeared. So I had to make an educated guess how to get out of the village and go down a passageway that I hoped would lead me out of Long Whatton. I was right, but yeah, could do with slightly better signage in here. Nice village though, all the same. Now I'm on to the fields south of Long Whatton. I was glad to find these, even though again as I came into the first field or two, I actually found myself walking on the wrong side of the hedge. Again, signs were a little indistinct. Luckily though I could just move across to the top of the field and be in the right part of the countryside. And always good to see ahead there a signpost indicating I am indeed on the right track after all. Also glad to see a gate rather than a stile. I'm never a big fan of stiles. What was interesting, I looked on my left in this field, you can see there was sort of a bit that had been ploughed up, but the rest of the field had been left fallow. But there are no animals in it. I see a radio tower there in the distance. I don't actually come near to that one, thankfully, but yeah, once I found the route, once I'd found this pathway across the fields, it was very pleasant. Quite a nice walk down here. Of course, beyond here, I had to go past a farm that had some lovely little horses, but also a lot of very loud yapping dogs that I quickly made my way past, because you never know when farm dogs are safely inside the farm, or they're untethered and going to come out and chase and bark and growl at you, which is never much of a laugh when you're a trekker. So having made my way past Mitchell's Spring Farm and its yappy dogs but beautiful horses, I managed to find my way eventually through this rather strange passage. This is actually the footpath. I think there may have been a stile there at some point. And this is the route across the M1. And I was quite pleased because I could see some people ahead there, which meant I wasn't totally off course. It also meant I was getting closer and closer to the end of my walk, because chances are when you see dog walkers, you can't be that far from the location they've come from. You know, they don't walk that far. You're generally within half a mile, 3/4 of a mile of conurbation. In this case, I was coming towards Shepshed. I mean, Shepshed does run very close to the M1. So ahead of me, that's Piper's Wood, and I'll be walking alongside that rather than through it, and down, and then finally onto a track that runs into Shepshed itself. Gotta say, this bridge looks like it's seen better days. It's holding together. I do hope someone comes and checks this from time to time. There's an awful lot of cracks in it.
As always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe this video. It really helps me. Helps me know that you enjoyed my video, but also gets more people to watch it and enjoy coming trekking with me.
Coming away from the woods now, and just ahead of me I can see there that is actually called Oakley Road. You'll see in a few moments it's not much of a road, but it does lead as a very convenient track across Blackbrook and then directly into Shepshed itself, which is just over to my left there, hidden behind that tree. It was mostly downhill past the woods, which was alright. A little muddy in places, but perfectly trackable, perfectly passable at this time of year. You can just see the blossom coming out there beautifully on the hedgerow. Nice seeing the hedgerows coming to life in sort of late March and into April. Really kind of helps make the countryside come alive a lot more. There we have it. Claims to be a road, but it is very clearly a very green road at best. And on I go towards Shepshed, which is very close now. Passing through suburban Shepshed now at this point. I must say, a lot of Shepshed is quite pretty. There is a bit ahead of here as I get to the end of this road and turned right. There's a little more shambolic, but it's a quirky little town. It's got some nice looking shops, some nice looking housing stock, decent roads and pathways to walk along. Reasonably friendly people too. Certainly those I encountered on this Sunday morning, or close to a Sunday afternoon by this point I suppose really. It's reasonably large. It also has, apart from of course the wonderful car park that I started from, it's got quite a lot of different paths coming out of it, and because it's on the far side of the M1 from Loughborough, it's a great starting point I suspect for a lot more treks going to the west, northwest and southwest of Loughborough, which is an area I've not actually walked a great deal. I did explore a little bit of it as part of the National Forest Trail I did last year, but as a whole, this is really a part of the world that I haven't walked as much as perhaps I should, and it's not much more than 10 miles from my front door, so I think I shall definitely be coming back to visit Shepshed again and exploring more of the paths and fields and areas around it soon. Not far to go now. This is me just coming across Britannia Street. Oh, camel in the window there, you might have spotted. After coming through Shepshed. Very easy walking. I mean, nothing much to report. You know, it's a town. Towns are fairly easy to walk through. And Shepshed's nicely laid out, so it was easy to find my way back to it. I always have that slight paranoia when I leave my car that I'll not be able to find my way back, but here we have it. The free parking. Free sign was very helpful when I arrived this morning. But here we go, into the entrance to the park itself. And yeah, really enjoyable walk. Shame I didn't quite get to do what I'd hoped to do on all of it, but it was a nice loop, and I can certainly see I'll be coming back here very soon. Almost see my car now, almost home.
So there we go, that's the end of today's walk. As I say, fewer aeroplanes in it than I hoped for, but enjoyable all the same. Some beautiful countryside I got to take in. Few too many roads maybe, but you know, given the weather and given the fact the fields are still quite marshy, I'm not that upset. Anyway, I hope to see you again for my next video when you come walking with me again with Walking with Llama Paws. See you then.